Today is RPG Wednesday, and you've been able to make a character sheet for a while. And also, AI is at a place where well, what is there to say about it? Cheers. Today is RPG Wednesday, and my credits with my coding agents renew today sometime. At some point today, my credits with my coding agents will renew. I can update my website without coding agents, and also, I don't need to update my website. I make videos on TikTok almost every day, and I have for a while. A reason that I continue to make content is to continue to reflect on the reason why I would reflect on the reason for the moment. I make content partially as a meditation on the media that we have available. RPG Wednesday is a day that we can meditate on the reasons why we might roleplay. What kind of world might we want to build in our imaginations? What kind of world might we want to imagine? Might we want to imagine? Every Wednesday is RPG Wednesday, and if you have a character, you can imagine your character in a world that you develop. Cheers. I make art to relate to my senses and also to reflect on the amount of time that has gone into reflecting on the amount of time. The amount of time that goes into reflecting on amounts of time. Similar to the reason why I make TikToks. If you have a character, and one reason why you might have a character is because you've been participating in RPG Wednesday. If you can describe a character, I can generate character art with Midjourney. Every Wednesday is RPG Wednesday, and I need to organize my art, so I might as well make some of the art, well, while I'm organizing my art and describing it within a context, I might as well make some of the artistic context useful for RPG Wednesday. If the RPG Wednesday world that we're world building with is infinitely expansive, that can be a way that I can consider my art and find new ways to organize it. I know that I can memorize scenes or I can remember details about scenes, and that can be a reason why I remember why things are clustered. And that might be a reason why I organize my art in a convenient way rather than in a different ooh. This video has been about a minute. Cheers. If you make 10,000 TikToks, that's an amount of effort that is an amount of effort. And if you know that you don't cheat yourself in that process, you can know that you've done that amount of effort. Will you learn in that process? Hopefully. And there are ways that you can almost guarantee that you will learn in that process. I've made 10,000 TikToks, and I also need to organize my art, and also, today is RPG Wednesday. Cheers! If you make TikToks long enough to develop the skill of making TikToks, then you can describe that you have the skill, and also tell a story about what you've been developing over time. If you are an artist, you can test your art on TikTok by seeing which art performs better, and confidence about your art can make people more invested in your art. So you can test your art to see which pieces perform better and perform about your art to develop the skill. Today is RPG Wednesday. You can develop scenes for gameplay. Cheers. Today is RPG Wednesday, which can be a day where you can come up with a reason for a character to exist and tell a story about them. If you're looking for work, you can describe a reason for a character who is similar to you to navigate a world that you've invented. Previous employers might have provided unideal conditions for your skill set, and you might want to tell a story about how you would ideally navigate a space. If you'd like to ground your world building in something more practical that would be relevant in a team context, we can talk about that as well. Cheers. Splashy, you need to make a skit advertising your services. But if I make a skit advertising my services, people will believe my services are the skit. Do you offer skits as services? Should I? You might consider it. I need to organize my art, and for a while it has been possible to create slop channels with AI. And also, if you have actual art, you can make a slop channel less slop. If you already know it's possible to create a slop channel with AI, what's the incentive to create one without AI? Maybe it's because you care about whoever would be consuming your content. Now I need to organize my art. Cheers. If you paint enough, then original characters kind of just come out of wherever you paint. The same place the painting ideas come from, original characters can also originate. So as I organize my paintings, I'm inviting you to imagine original characters, and also I'm describing that I've been developing original characters for a while. In high school, I was on the speech team in the original comedy category. Cheers. Tip me so I can tell some stories. In high school, I was in the original comedy category on the speech team. In high school, I was on the speech team in the original comedy category. I was also on the improv team in my senior year. I've performed improv in other places as well. If you want entertaining stories, tip me so I can tell them. Cheers. If you study computer science and practice with a job, then you can do things with what you've practiced. You can apply the principles of computer science to business and scale an operation that is what you want to do with what you can do. Like, ideally, we wouldn't have miserable jobs, and if we have the ability to scale an operation, ideally it would be an operation that we don't mind. I've been practicing making videos, and I don't mind making videos. Sometimes I don't have the same energy. I intend to invest in media that allow me to mind the energy that I do have. Cheers. Software engineers need to consider code that runs in different environments, like development, staging, and production. The metaphor is relevant across multiple dimensions, and minding which dimensions are specified can be difficult when there are so many. Practicing communicating is valuable, and I would recommend making TikToks to practice communication. There will be other media, and social media may provide different channels for different structures of practice. I might also recommend stand-up comedy and improv to practice a different skill set. The main point is practice. Cheers. I make a lot of videos. You might have something that you want to market. Maybe you want to market your own skill set. I make a lot of other videos. Today is RPG Wednesday. Every Wednesday is RPG Wednesday. I have conversations with creatives, people who make things. I have conversations and we make things. Cheers. The reason I mentioned my major, I mentioned what I majored in college. I majored in learning and education studies with a concentration in applied learning science. The reason I mentioned my major in college is because it is relevant for the skills that I uniquely have. Most people didn't take as many courses in education as I have. Cheers. Some of the same principles that apply to software engineering also apply to production in other contexts, like, well, media production. I'm working on a movie and also a game and a couple of series. Tip me or donate. Cheers! You need to onboard new engineers, and also your software is boring, so it's difficult. You can practice reading software out loud and see which software is interesting enough to read out loud. This mostly works if you hire someone who has practiced reading software out loud. Now there are new relationships we can form with some logic, and we might want to explore different relationships with processing logic. Cheers! I've been a software engineer for 15 years, and I've also been hired as a senior software engineer, and there are other skills that I've been developing for years. It's pretty easy to get imposter syndrome as a software engineer, and also there are reasons why we would want to be intentional about describing the skill set that actually makes software engineering talent develop. I want to say that it isn't the years of experience, and it also isn't that I have been hired as a senior software engineer, and also I can reflect on the skills that I intend to develop and talk about them. I intend to point to production experience and describe that I'm developing a movie. I want to be mindful of the contexts that I integrate when I develop my movie. So while it is possible to use my TikToks to tell a story, I want to be mindful of how it feels to create content. The story that I tell with the movie that I develop ideally would motivate other people to create their own content. Cheers! This is a painting that I painted anyway, and also today is RPG Wednesday, so it might as well be the motivation for a scene that we play in, and also we can interpret this with Midjourney, which I think is kind of cool. Sometimes I need to charge my phone, and I either have or haven't been running an agentic coding loop showing off the painting for RPG Wednesday today. Today is June 2026. Today is June 10th, 2026. Throughout the week, I make videos on TikTok, and I have credits with coding agents that are available at different times. The idea of being able to do more than we've been able to do is kind of cool, and also having more work is kind of not a cool idea, depending on how you view it. There's a lot of discussion about automation, and it can give us more work or alleviate some of the load. I'm describing that I have to do work anyway. And also, today is RPG Wednesday. Cheers. If you practice describing the reasons why someone would hire you enough, then you can describe your skills in a tone that people respond to more likely. Saying that again, you can find your voice and practice doing the things that people respond to more consistently. If you're looking for work, I would recommend practicing describing the reasons why someone would hire you and see if your tone of voice can motivate people to listen to what you're saying. This is one reason why I've practiced making videos on TikTok. I practice being able to improvise the things that I have to say and placing my thoughts into a package, bundling my ideas so they're more likely to be received. Now I don't need to be received better because I already have an audience, and the goals for growth are what organizations have considered. I'd rather my projects be sustainable than large. Cheers. If you have a career for about a dozen years and then spend a few years on TikTok specifically describing what your career has been like, eventually you'll synchronize with other people who are doing the same thing, and some of them are going to have more or fewer years of experience. My goals are to produce quality content. Cheers. When I was in high school, I wrote and directed a play about feeling out of place. It was meant to be a satirical, genre bending autobiography. Fictionalized, of course. Next year will be the 13-year anniversary, and I have plans to produce a movie. Cheers. There are reasons why we wouldn't want to use AI, and there are reasons why we would. When it's easy to oscillate between whether we would or wouldn't want to, if that's predictable, we can bundle the experience and create a craft product. Something enticing enough for people to explore what they can do with AI, but also not significant enough that the, well, the outcome can't be consequential enough for it to really matter whether they do or don't use AI. For example, some forms of storytelling along game development. Cheers. Depression became more of a problem in high school, and there's a lot that went into that. I can summarize it for the sake of this video as being more related to trying to figure out how to consistently describe what my needs were and how I could relate to getting those met. Everyone is a different person, and we all have unique needs. Being able to describe them is pretty helpful. Depression is often a symptom more than it is the thing that we need to address. We can try to address we can address depression as a symptom, but we often need to address the reason why it's occurring. I've learned a lot about myself and mental health since I was in high school. That's one of the reasons why I tell the story that I do. Cheers. I'm processing paintings today and also reflecting on what I want to tell a story about because I do have a movie planned for 2027 and I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to film. I've lost housing multiple times in my life and I've lost access to my stuff a few times. I've lost friends in my life and I try not to, and I've learned different dimensions of relationship that go into maintaining relationship. When I reflect on the reason why it's been difficult to organize my art, it is because of the ways my art has made me feel, and processing that at different times feels different ways. All of that might be abstract, I'm not sure. I still need to process some of the emotions associated with the reasons why loss has occurred. I'm not the only person who exists. I'm not the only person who's experienced loss. While I can reflect on the jobs that I've had and how much they've paid me before, or the salary that I anticipated having that didn't turn into stability, the structures that I can say I want to return to. I can also reflect on the structures of stability that other people are navigating and consider where my attention flows. It feels like a story that I can tell is one about a person who navigated depression and found reasons and structures and systems that were necessary to keep me alive. I already know that I haven't been able to make those available to people who I've wanted to make those available to. I understand that I can practice and I can have conversations with others, and we can try to build towards a world that is easier to exist in. When I build structures that I intend to make available for others to imagine, I understand that I won't always be able to describe the gravity associated with the reasons why I want to make imagination more accessible. It is possible to imagine a better world, and we can talk about what that might mean. Cheers. One of the challenges with raising money now is that I'm not sure when you're going to see anything that I produce. And there are different things that I can do with different amounts of money at different times. For example, when I run out of credits with my coding agents, it can be helpful to have more credits with my coding agents. There are other things that I can do with $50, so I might not put $50 towards coding agents, and some of my coding agents charge me differently. I've been a software developer for 15 years. I know how to write code on my own, and the software that I can develop on my own, I might as well paint or practice painting and memorize. I'm working on a film and I'd like to fund the film. Funding the film requires, well, the film will be based on different funding structures, and that's why I'm raising a different amount. Can I produce media? Yes, and I will. The media that I'm trying to fund will require different funding structures, so that's why the amount is different. Is it different? Like when I say that I'm trying to fund a specific bill, that is different than trying to raise an amount that I can put towards a film. I'd also like to be able to afford different account things. Cheers. In high school, I was on the speech team in the original comedy category. My senior year, I was on the improv team, and I've performed stand up comedy in comedy clubs. So I know it's possible for me to tell jokes. I also know it's possible for me to practice. In my career as a software engineer, I was on teams that required processing data. So I know it's possible for me to process feedback. I've spent the past 3 years on TikTok practicing making videos for TikTok. I'm also producing a movie for 2027. Cheers. In 2020, my car got totaled and I was upside down on the auto loan because I didn't know that was possible. I was mostly trying to leave, so I chose the auto loan option that made it possible. An option. When my car got totaled, I was in a walkable city and it didn't bother me as much. Then I lost my job. Now I'm trying to raise money for a car. I'm also trying to raise money for a film. I'm also trying to raise money for bills. You might say, get a job. That's the plan. Cheers. Today is RPG Wednesday. Also, apparently not a lot of people know how well Midjourney has come along. So, if you've been playing along with it, playing around with it, if you've been playing with Midjourney, you might be able to create a compelling character with it. Can you consistently describe the features of your character such that Midjourney version 8.1 can consistently render it? Cheers! If you're an author, you might consider trying to describe your character for Midjourney to see if you can consistently render a character concept. This might be relevant for authorship in general. It might be relevant to see what your readers might want to prompt to see if them prompting is going to impact their experience. Today is RPG Wednesday, and I'm considering developing scenes that illustrate the world and the pace of development so we can have more development for future weeks. I want to practice developing scenes that players can imagine their characters interacting with, and also be able to extend scenes so other characters can extend their own scenes as well. Cheers. Today I've improvised more than 30 TikToks, which means I can stitch more than 30 TikToks together and upload a long video to YouTube, maybe. Presumably, a 30 TikTok video would be at least 15 minutes if I assume most of my TikToks are at least 30 seconds, and I generally aim for around 1 minute. Oh, Now we have AI, and sometimes people have accused me of being AI, and I can make several videos, and someone can see one video and interpret something based on whatever context. I've also seen channels where people have uploaded other people's content, and I'm not sure if someone's going to do that with my videos. I have spent time with an audience, and I have relationships with actual creators. So when I consider what I want to build, those are the people who I'm considering reaching towards. Like making content towards, I want to make infrastructure that others can navigate meaningfully. I also want to mind what I imply others might want to create with their own world. In this video, I'm considering what the value of all of my TikToks stitched together from today might be. Today is June 10th, 2026, and today is RPG Wednesday. Every Wednesday is RPG Wednesday. It's a day when I consider what I do with my art and how I've made scenes available. If you're an author, you can hire me for illustration and marketing. I thought about what to say there. If you want to get on Blue Sky, you can get on Blue Sky. Same goes with Twitter or X. Now there are new ways to tell stories, and if you want to tell a story with a new account on Blue Sky, there are ways to do that. There are ways you might want to explore. I'd like to tell a story that way, so reach out to me if you want to explore that space. It's so easy to generate illustrations now. I'm going to explore my art, I'm going to organize my art, and show you how that can happen. If I already have art, then I can sort it and also generate art from the art that I've sorted. I want to be mindful of, well, what does it mean to collect art now? What does it mean to tell a story for the first time? Cheers. I've recorded about 27 minutes of TikToks today, so I'm rounding out this last stretch. Well, I'm not sure if it's going to be a last stretch. We'll see. I'm planning on improvising a video to make sure I've recorded 30 minutes of content today. The reason is so I can describe the advantages of bundling and be able to describe that if you have 30-minute episodes of something, you can describe what you would do with 30 minutes of time. Also, if you make videos consistently, you might be able to compile 30 minutes from the videos that you've made on other days, which is why I know that I can do this. I've made around 10,000 TikToks, 10,000 videos on TikTok that can be stitched or duetted, so I know there's a stream of content that I've produced. Software engineers need a relationship with the quantity of information that they're working on or the rate of flow, and I recommend software engineers practice making videos to practice communicating. I also recommend software engineers have a relationship with productizing some dimension of their work. It might be uncomfortable at first, but if the relationship with developing work and productizing it isn't kept well, if you practice developing software jargon without being able to describe that to others, then you can mismatch your career. Your career can end up in a place where you can't really describe your skills. If it's hard to justify paying as much money as companies are often willing to, sometimes you will just be seen as expensive. There are better ways that I can put that. The short version of what I intend to say with that is to practice doing accounting on your time. With your time, consider your experience with development, staging, and production environments as constituent components of a career in film. How would you estimate what's necessary for whatever you're trying to produce? Also, what is the relationship that you intend to have with media? With this stitched video, with the video that I stitched together from the TikToks that I upload today, I kind of hope that I can launch funding for my film, that I can describe that I'm working on it consistently, and actually fund that venture. It is possible to generate a film, and I'm going to explore what's easy. And also, I'm going to explore what I can do towards storytelling. What would make an interesting story to tell, and how can I relate the reason why I tell a story with the media that I choose to present that? I can see that I've recorded about 3 minutes in this video, so I know that I've recorded 30 minutes of content for today. And I can also generate a story that lasts about 30 minutes. So if someone stumbles across a video that has generated text and they complain that it was generated, I've also I've also improvised 30 minutes of content. So with me as the human generator and whatever coding model or agentic system, something, it is possible to practice creativity and extend our creativity with modern technology. Cheers.